excited about is when I started putting this together, I was with Lowe's for some 35 years before I retired, and I started in 1972. So a lot of you weren't even born in 1972, and I was a struggling college sophomore in Chapel Hill, and I went to the Lowe's store in Durham, which, by the way, was store number 6, and I asked for a job, and they said, well, we don't hire part-time people. And I said, well, I get it. I'll take a full-time job if you just work with me. And the company agreed to do that. And so I became a full-time employee in 1972, working unloading boxcars in a lumber yard in Durham, North Carolina. That's how I started. And I'm proud of that because I think I was fortunate enough, they kept me around long enough to where I could kind of learn my way through the business and see it from the ground up. And there's tremendous advantage in that. And if that's not what small business is all about, I don't know what is. So let me tell you the Lowe's story. That was our first store on C Street in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina in 1946. Our founder was a fellow, and he was really the founder, was a fellow named Carl Buchan. I never met Carl, but he was an entrepreneur, he was a visionary, he was a leader, he was a great guy, and everybody around town would tell you that. Many people ask the Lowe's name, so were you all ever associated with Lowe's Foods? Well, sort of. Jim Lowe was the brother. Carl Buchan married his sister, and he was the brother-in-law. And the two of them were trying to work under the same roof. Well, something else you know about entrepreneurs. That doesn't usually work very well, does it, Joe? So Jim said, I tell you what, why don't you buy the business from me, and I'll go do something else. And Carl said, okay, I'll do that. So Carl bought Lowe's. He bought this dump on C Street. And Jim took off and got in the grocery business. I'd say both of them did pretty well. Now, y'all asked me to talk about this, from lumberyard to national powerhouse, the secrets to Lowe's success. So get your pads and pens out, because here comes all the secrets of a company with 70 years of history. And if any of these surprise you, I'm going to raise your hand. What really, and I'm boiling this down, the things I think really helped make Lowe's successful was we were able to come up with good plans, and we were smart enough to follow them. We learned how to work hard and also work smart, and it takes both. We learned what customer service was all about and how to really be dedicated to, and I'm not kidding about that, really be dedicated to it. And while you hear me say we, because when you're with a company 35 years, that is your life. And I'm still there, even though I'm retired, and I'm proud of that. But this dedication to customers was critical. But there was also always a dedication to the employees, because if you take good care of your employees, they'll take good care of your customers. We believed in golden rule management and still do, and you do unto others. It's really, really important. It can't be the top guy gets things different than the other guys. And unload a few boxcars in July and you'll catch that. I'm really proud on the company's behalf, and we're very humble about our transparency and our moral and ethical behaviors. We form partnerships, and you should form partnerships with your partners. In this case, it was our vendors. We decided not to backwardly vertical integrate into manufacturing. And when we made that decision, then those people that did had to become our partners, and they did. You know, if you can get good people, put them together, and make them believe, you know what they'll do for you? Great things. And that was really, really important to us. And then focus, 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 and refocus. Now I'm going to take you on a little tour. This was an early Lowe's store, and based on the hands of the 60s and 70s, which mine was up, but very few, this is what we were all about. We were emerging as a small chain of lumber yards, very local, based in North Carolina. And when Carl Buchan died very unexpectedly at the age of 44, the company had to be taken public in 1961. Now, this was a company that looked like this. You drive by that, and I don't think you'd even blink. We were famous for serving the commercial contractor customer, had no retail orientation at all. So we went through this. And if you don't write that down and live it every day, somebody's going to beat you to the punch. It's all about reinvention. It's all about how you over and over again say, am I there? And if I'm not, what have I got to do to get there? So we continued to reinvent, and we reinvent today. And that's not just corporately. you got to do it individually as well, and you can't be shy about it. If I have time, I'll tell you a quick story about that at the end. Did you know do-it-yourself was actually born in 1955? Most people don't. Again, I see, well, Woody was there, Jim was there, but very few, and I was there just for the record, but and good to have you guys here, but very, very few of us, I'll catch it for that later, very, very few of us were here then. This was a national article in 1955 about do-it-yourself. And what it basically said was, customers say, I can do it. But they also say, but I don't want to shop in a contractor yard to get what I need. So what I'm going to tell you about, maybe, oh, there we go. Uh-oh, I messed up. If you can help me straighten that up, I'd appreciate it. I'm going to tell you about multiple companies that were all called Lowe's that emerged over the years. And I think when I catch your drift, when you started shopping Lowe's, you'll go, oh, I remember that. It's what happened before then to get you there is what the entrepreneurship and the small business is all about. And that's what I really wanted to focus on. In the 70s, we were a small chain of lumber yards located in out-of-the-way places. The average size of our selling floor was 11,000 square feet. That's pretty tiny. Oh, thank you so much. There you go. How many of you would like to shop there today? You know what determined that location? The presence of a rail siding. Because we were in the lumber business, and lumber was cheaper if you bought it by the carload. So we thought, let that drive the location. We had large warehouses, we had small sales floors, and we were famous for, now that we have your order, if you'll just go around back, we'll load it for you. That worked out great, because that gave us a reputation that it took 20 years to get over, and that was the word slows, because we were known for poor customer service. Now, being in the retail business, that's not ideal, but it just goes to show you you can make mistakes, and we certainly did. Then there was the next Lowe's I worked for, Lowe's of the 80s. This is when real retail enters the picture. And I'm privileged to say it's when I became a store manager for the first time. And the store was Winston-Salem Metro, and it was store 139, and it was the first store in an urban retail location. Now, the problem was our policies and procedures, our habits for customer service, the way we went about doing business, didn't match this store. So the manager that I was working for at the time, I was his assistant store manager, he said, well, they're going to give you your store finally. And I went, well, oh, that's great. And he said, yeah, it's going to be a retail store. Good luck. And I thought, okay. So here we went. We started putting the store in place, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But the biggest thing we did, you'll laugh when I tell you this, we put the cash register at the front door. He didn't laugh. Well, I'm not surprised because that's where it belongs and that's where they all are today. But in our stores, they were all in the back of the store. Don't ask me why. This store was in the 20 to 27,000 foot class, and it actually did pretty well, not because of me, but because of the team. But what emerged at the same time we started getting into retail was another guy with a different shade, not blue, but orange, down in Atlanta, known as the Home Depot. They opened two 85,000 square foot stores. Any of you remember those? Well, probably not. You all are local, but let me tell you, that made a big difference. So the next Lowe's that we worked for was Lowe's of the 90s, and maybe some of you will remember this. This was our first 100,000 square foot store in Charlotte, North Carolina. It was located over on Highway 74, and I think it's a Pottery Barn or something like that now. We sold the location, but because we built a bigger one, not because we went out of business, thank goodness. But that was us emerging. It was our first move to more than contractor yards, but we dealt with packaging issues, barcodes. Everywhere you shop today, everything's got a barcode, right? It didn't then. There was no such thing as barcodes for lumber and building materials and nails and all the stuff we were selling, plywood. We had to invent it. I'll say it was fun, but it's easy to say now. It wasn't so much fun convincing major suppliers like Weyerhaeuser and Georgia Pacific and some of the brand names that you probably know to put barcodes on each individual item. They thought we were nuts. And nails. You know, when you go to buy a pound of nails today, you pull a little box off the shelf. That isn't how it used to be. We had to invent those too. We had to learn that brown boxes on a shelf looked really bad. But that's the way everything was shipped. Now you're going, it can't be. And you know, many of you have been in a Lowe's store today and you're going, I see bright colors, I see good lighting, I see all that stuff. You do today, but it didn't start out that way. We had to learn. And that's my point to small business, is we didn't start out when you go to Huntersville if you shop there, or Mooresville if you shop there, or Denver if you shop there. That's not what it used to look like. What you see today is an evolution, is a reinvention of all of that. Lowe's of the 2000s was when things really started coming together. Our policies and procedures were changing. We were recognizing that it had to be more than just price. We were growing up where there was some real competition. And because we had to keep everything on the shelf, our distribution strategies had to change, and we had to get in the logistics business, and we had to own that. Then we had to figure out how to understand the customer. And this men versus women thing is not meant to be cute. You have to understand who shops where. Ladies, 80% of our store belongs to you. I'm serious. You're welcome. Actually, we thank you. Guys, tools, lumber and building materials is yours. That's it. That's all you get. We call it the 80% rule. And we learned that one the hard way. But we also had to change our employment base. I remember a time when a woman walked, I'm going to tell you this, but please don't repeat it, I know you won't, that a woman would walk in a Lowe's store and people start whistling. I'm serious. How awful, how rude. But those folks didn't know any better because they never saw women in their stores. So not only did we have to figure out how to invite you to make 80% of your purchases as ladies and feel good about it and choose us over others, but our employment base had to match. Women in management, diversity, all those types of things, which, by the way, led us to Mooresville, so we could really become a diverse organization. That's why we're here. I sure am glad we moved. You all have never been to Wilkesboro, I take it. So it's a neat little town. So there you are, ladies. Do you think, okay, Bill, when you're single, that doesn't count. Yeah. Joe, you're not single, I don't think. Okay. All right, so you're married. So when it's time to repaint the bedroom, who's going to make that choice? Okay, Joe said, not I. Okay, so you got it. Well, that's what we had to get comfortable with. And then the displays and the way we went to market with all of our things were more in line with what Joe would like than what you would like, Sherry. And so that's when we had to say, okay, time for a change.